Nigeria is facing a housing crisis, a crisis with many dimensions. While local entrepreneurs are trying to solve the crisis, the situation has worsened with the coronavirus pandemic. Many are becoming homeless. Affordable housing is a considerable challenge for urban areas with large populations, and this is particularly prevalent in major cities like Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt.
COVID-19 will also make it difficult for people to pay rents. Many tenants could not meet their obligations. We all know that funds became scarce. People were not earning much income, except those who are already in the salary scale. But preferably the government, you are sure that you get your monthly salary. But those in the private sector, some of them are being owed. And you know also that many people earn their own income by their self-efforts. So because of this, many landlords have been deprived that rent. And at the same time, if you say it's not a good period for rent to go up, because if you increase rent, the tendency for tenants to pay will be difficult. So it is not a period for landlord to increase rent.
As millions of people move into cities every year across Nigeria, rapid urbanization and population growth have caused problems in such cities. In Nigeria, there is already a housing deficit in overstretched cities and even rural communities. Nigeria has continued to face housing problems as glaring shortfalls are being recorded as a consequence of rising population and costly rents.
Government is still the largest provider of housing units. We remember during the military, from 1975 to 80 or 79, when they were living, the LSDPC, that is Lagos State Development and Property Corporation, was able to deliver 1,500 housing units. And when the Sullivan government came in, especially during the dynamic housing policy of Governor Jakonde, they were able to deliver close to 18,000 housing units within that short period. And you could see we have Jakonde houses everywhere. And that was able, honestly speaking, that was able to reduce the high demand for housing in Lagos State. So government intervention is necessary, or else there will be congestion, over congestion in the center cities.
In 2013, the World Bank said Nigeria has a deficit of 17 million to 22 million housing units. 7 years after, the situation is not getting any better. The shortfall has become a cause for concern among Nigerians as the gap between demand and supply widens.
Statistically, even from MBS record, even for poverty clock, over 100 million Nigerians live on less than 700 naira income per day. They live within that poverty threshold. Over 92% of Nigerians, only about 8% of Nigerians live on income of about 60,000 naira and above. That simply means the only population, the only number of Nigerians that live and can even afford properties, their own home, is less than 1%. Those who live on income of about 1 million a month and above. So if you look at it demographically, if you look at it from the financial standpoint, you will discover that these are huge challenges that we must tackle. Having identified that problem, 20 million housing units requiring 120 trillion naira to fix over the next 30 years. 98% of Nigerians legitimately, without compromising, cannot afford their own homes based on the current physical structure that we have in Nigeria.
Apart from the fact that many Nigerians find it difficult to get a roof over their heads, the economic impact of coronavirus has either rendered millions homeless or pushed them to the limits. This remains a major problem for Nigerians. Every day brings a different challenge. The problem of housing has become one of the attendant issues further headlined by the impact of COVID-19. For renters, it has been a disturbing trend of default in payments occasioned by lack of a functional mortgage system.
The mortgage companies, if they can't get from the National Housing Fund, what they go to get money or funds from the commercial banks where money is available for trading. So that becomes a challenge in its own end. And that's where we are in this country. We need to really get ourselves together and do a proper roadmap.
For most Nigerian landlords who adopted the long-term rent payment system, the impact of the coronavirus outbreak on the real estate market is nothing cheery. Their tenants are grinding their teeth with leaking wallets.
My mom actually just called me around, was it May or April, that they've increased their house rent, which I happen to be the person that makes the payment. So in that aspect, directly, it has affected me. And I was surprised because when we look at the situation of the country, everybody is on lockdown, nobody is going to anywhere, and suddenly somebody somewhere just feel they can just increase the house rent. So definitely affected.
The unlawful practice that allows most landlords in the major cities to force their tenants to make down payments of not less than 1 year has become another subject of controversy. In some cases, tenants are expected to pay rents 2 years upfront.
Don't know how I will cope. Though the payment has not been made, we were given a month notice to make payment from July, and this is September. I've not been able to pay.
With one of the most rigid rent payment systems in Africa, Nigeria has majority of landlords collecting upfront payments on apartments. This is despite the fact that most tenants receive their income monthly. An endless housing crisis, coupled with poor housing policy and greedy landlords, means renters in Nigeria are having to double up to meet payment obligations as the country continues to gallop through the pandemic.
Some offices even cut down the salaries of their workers. We all know the situation of the country, so we should just have patience with one another and not overnight increase house rents.
But at a time like this, when coronavirus has almost brought economic activities to a standstill in Nigeria, some landlords are making a difference. One of such rare Nigerians is 64-year-old Madam Ezenwa Amos, who has slashed the rent for her tenants. I sought to know what prompted her to do this at a time when others are taking undue advantage of tenants to demand more.
It's because of the problem in the country. It's very difficult for people. That time of epidemic, people did not go to work. We were indoor throughout, no money, no food. So increasing house rent now, it does not help those tenants. That's why I say, let me help so that they can be neat to others to learn from it.
While a few landlords who collect rent on a monthly basis are seeing high default rates, as some Nigerians have either lost their jobs or have had their salaries slashed by their employers. Madam Ezenwa thinks differently.
Many people troop in every day, every month, every year. So as they come in, the increase of house rent enter. Let government give us free hands so that we can afford. Give us even this the so-called land use. You suppose not to pay. You suppose not to pay land use. I'm a retiree. They should help retiree not to pay land use.
A report by the estate agency professionals says more than 60% of tenants will not be able to pay their house rents in Nigeria this year due to the coronavirus pandemic and its crippling impact on household income. But tenants like Patience Nweke are happy they won't be part of the statistics.
Very excited. It's only God that searches her that know how I feel, because it's not easy. Mama just do it for me because no way to get the money. I don't have anybody, no mama, no papa, no husband. She's the only one that I have, so she did it for me. Did what? You need to... She said that I should give her half of my rent, not for the whole year. She just cut it off for me. Said I should pay her for 6 months and leave 6 months.
With rising job losses, salaries on hold or slashed, the residential and commercial property market has been recording a steady decline this year, and if the situation continues, analysts fear the worst.
People have given some of their some landlords and some property managers. I know of some estate surveyors who have discussed with some of their property owners to allow a bit of rent gap for some of the tenants, because you already know what they are going through, and those things, agreeably they are working, but the challenge is that rents are not really going up. For commercial offices, some people are shrinking their spaces because the space has been vacant for how long, in spite of the fact that they have their equipment there. They are not occupying the place because a lot of people are working from home. The banks, you will see that not all the banks are opening at the same time. They tell you per week, this branch will open, that branch will not open. So that tells you that they can forgo one branch and their operations will still go on. So a lot of things are really happening. We are not seeing the total effects of this on rental income yet.
For now, Nigerians continue to struggle to meet with periodic obligatory payments in the face of dwindling economic fortunes. An increase in default rate is affecting the traditional real estate players and landlords who are highly dependent on rental income. But the tenants are singing different songs.
Some people, their own business is relying on rental income. They have a lot of houses, and even when you're talking of retirees, a lot of retirees built those houses as their own retirement benefits, or some of them collected their retirement benefits and used it to build the houses so that they can have sustainability. The challenges retirees are faced with government and all that. So at that point, it becomes difficult to begin to dictate to them that don't increase rent and all that. But I think this is a matter of interface between the property owners, property managers, and the landlord and the tenants.
But why is Nigeria unable to provide decent and affordable housing for its more than 200 million citizens? The challenges are many.
The cheapest home for a family of 4 or a family of 6 is a 2-bedroom apartment or a 3-bedroom apartment. Today, based on the cost of building material, based on the humongous, atrocious Land Use Act that we have refused to amend, to own a property in Nigeria, the barest of properties, a 1-bedroom flat, 2-bedroom flat, will take about 6 million to 10 million naira. And for a civil servant, let's take the base pay, minimum pay of 30,000 naira. To own a property that will cost you 6 million naira, even if you have a 30-year mortgage in place, will require a deduction of about 16,000 naira without interest from your salaries. Most Nigerians cannot afford it. So what do we do to solve this problem? We've identified some of the solutions. Number one, the Land Use Act has always been a problem in Nigeria. It is long overdue for amendment. The current arrangement confers so much power in the hand of a governor That is why if you go to many states today, a governor will allocate land. The next one comes in, he revokes it arbitrarily. Somebody's investment goes down the drain just because too much powers have been arrogated into the hand of one man.
Because of the uncertainty and then because of the challenges on importation of building materials. There was hike in the market due to lockdown across the world, and you know, Nigeria being a country that is import oriented suffer from lack of or unavailability of these materials. And also when the number of materials in the market, in the building market, has reduced, it will also lead to rise in the prices of building materials, especially the imported one, which is something that we have also learned a lot from. And that is why the Nigerian Institute of Building has decided to look into research, creativity, and development of our own local materials, that is revibrating the issue of local content, that we cannot continue to rely on imported building materials, because COVID-19 has really taught us a lesson that if China does not exist, how do we proceed? That was what we have been taught. If Europe could not export to Nigeria, are we not going to survive? Would that be the end of our ambition to own our own houses? So we are looking seriously inward, and it's a challenge on research persons within us to also be creative and produce new materials, affordable materials from our enormous resources.
We don't have a system where even our graduates can begin to bank on home ownership from the time they are leaving schools, like some other climes have evolved. So you find out that the person at the low income earning bracket is already at the age of 35, 40, 45 before he starts saying that, let me own a home. And by the time he's doing that, either for want of the process itself, in terms of ownership, you look at the provisions for mortgage financing in this country, it becomes a challenge, because he may not even be able to meet up with all the requirements. So at the end of the day, that person ends up finding land somewhere very far away from regulatory authorities, and just does 2 rooms for himself, uncompleted, there's no standard and everything.
Outdated mortgage laws, which experts say need to be reviewed or amended. Funding gap that has become wider with the decline in economy. Rapid urbanization due to influx of poor immigrants. Lack of planning and inflated real estate values. Poor mortgage system. Corruption and poor infrastructure and policy implementation are among the problems.
We are also expeditiously now processing applications for certificates of occupancy, and as at the last count, we have processed and approved 3,750, and we are doing more.
It is in support of this new direction that my colleagues and I hereby pledge our unalloyed support and commitment to the PMB-led administration's vision of providing affordable and accessible housing for Nigerians.
To align with this vision, I call on the state governments, especially the Southwest governors, to partner with this vision, because you need to provide housing for your citizens. This is one of the mandates you have as a state government, to provide housing for your citizens. Different mortgage plans across Nigeria for civil servants, business owners, traders, every individual in Nigeria. Housing is one sector that can build the nation. Housing is a strong stimulant for nation building.
Funding, the economy is quite tough, and we all know that. And so the take home is not taking anybody home. The inflation is a big issue. Many reasons why we're having quack real estate companies in this country today is that people claim that give us 50,000, right? And they don't really have access to liquid. So at the end of the day, 10 years time, this property is the same. Nothing has been done.
We have done proposals to the Pension Commission on how we can creatively help them to drive a private sector initiative that will force people to enroll and unlock those kind of disposable funds that can be used to do long-term financing. Just close your eyes and imagine in Nigeria, if we have pension fund assets of over, our current GDP is about $450 to $475 billion. Close your eyes and imagine if we have pension fund assets of about $250 billion. Imagine the kind of impact it will have on development of properties in Nigeria. That one again is the issue of mortgage financing. If we have huge funding in place, if you have mortgages that can go up to 30, 40 years, people can plan their lives. In America, in Europe, if you go to America today, the volume of pension fund assets in America is about 1-2% of their GDP. The same thing in Britain. But here in Nigeria is less than 5%. Why is it less than 5%? Because we have refused to put in place. We said an employer must who has employees of up to three must enroll them. But there is no penalty for those who do not enroll. The law should go ahead, they should go ahead and amend that law and make it compulsory. If you have employers of more than 3, and you don't enroll them into the reform pension, you don't create RSA for them, you will be liable to go to jail for 6 months without option of fine. If there is no consequences, people will not do what is right. And when we put such laws in place, and again, there should be a private sector driven effort to make sure that employees can be able to report employers who recruit them without providing this. The law also made provision for insurance, 3-year life insurance for the employees. It is not being implemented. In developed climates like the US and Asia and Europe, even when you have a mortgage, there's also room for you to insure those mortgages. Assuming you are out of job, insurance company will take up paying your mortgages until you get a new job. So in such a way, we can be able to settle the deficit that we have in Nigeria over the next 20 to 30 years.
Experts advise that for effective housing delivery in Nigeria, the mortgage law should be amended. Government should increase budgetary allocation to the sector, collaborate with the private sector, and source for international funding.